3 words, 1 leather jacket, and an entire generation was suddenly obsessed with teenagers who were somehow old enough to have mortgages. When Grease arrived in theaters on June 16, 1978, it looked like a harmless little throwback to the 1950s. The movie cost about $6 million. Its stars were mostly nowhere near high school age, and even some of the people making it weren't convinced it would work. Then, the impossible happened. Grease became one of the biggest movies of the 1970s, despite critics dismissing it as nothing more than a shallow teenage fantasy. And somewhere in the middle of production, something happened so eerie that the entire crew reportedly fell silent. Number 16. Grease was almost an animated movie about a suicidal Danny Zuko. Before John Travolta ever put on the black leather jacket, Grease had nearly become an animated movie. Animator Ralph Bakshi, best known for Fritz the Cat, was among the first filmmakers pursuing the screen rights. The project was supposed to take the musical into the kind of adult animation Bakshi was known for. Then Jim Jacobs, one of Grease's creators, asked the question that probably saved millions of moviegoers from emotional damage. How does it end? The answer was, Danny Zuko commits suicide. Jacobs and co-writer Warren Casey were apparently stunned. The project eventually fell apart, and producer Alan Carr acquired the rights for $200,000, pushing Grease toward the bright, live-action musical that eventually reached theaters. But the filmmakers still kept one strange souvenir from the abandoned animated idea. The movie's opening credits remained animated, so the version of Grease we know begins with cartoon teenagers because, at one point, the entire movie was supposed to be cartoons. Number 15. The teenagers needed a wrinkle inspection. The biggest problem with Rydell High was that Rydell High was full of people who looked like they had already graduated twice. Stockard Channing was 33 playing Rizzo, Olivia Newton-John was 29, John Travolta was 23. Director Randall Kleiser knew the illusion could collapse the moment a camera got too close, so during casting, he developed what he called the crow's feet test, examining actors' faces for signs that they looked too old to pass as students. Channing made it through anyway. Then producer Alan Carr reportedly appeared with a brown pencil and added freckles to her face to make her look younger. She later joked that she didn't look younger, she just looked dirtier. Number 14. Sandy almost wasn't Sandy. The production nearly lost the one person who would make Sandy Olsen iconic. Olivia Newton-John was already an international recording star, and she was reluctant to make her American film debut as a teenager at 29. She also worried about her American accent and whether she would look too old beside Travolta, so she demanded a screen test with Travolta before committing. The test worked, their chemistry was obvious, and Carr solved the accent problem by rewriting Sandy as an Australian transfer student. The actress who worried she couldn't convincingly play Sandy ended up becoming the face audiences couldn't imagine anyone else playing. Number 13. Danny Zuko almost belonged to the Fonz. John Travolta's most famous movie role nearly went to the man who was already America's most famous greaser. Henry Winkler was offered Danny Zuko while he was playing Fonzie on Happy Days. He turned it down because he feared being trapped forever as the leather-jacketed cool guy. Years later, Winkler admitted he wasn't much of a singer either. Travolta, meanwhile, already knew the material. He had performed duty in the touring stage production and desperately wanted Danny. Winkler stayed Fonzie. Travolta got the movie. Number 12. Elvis Presley was supposed to appear in the movie. The production had a role that seemed almost designed for Elvis. Teen Angel, the impossibly cool figure who descends to give Frenchie some questionable beauty advice. Elvis was considered for the part, but it never happened. Frankie Avalon ultimately got it. The Grease crew filmed the "Look at Me, I'm Sandra Dee" sequence on August 16, 1977, the exact day Elvis Presley died. The lyrics had already been changed from Sal Mineo to Elvis after Mineo's death, so the crew was filming a joke about Elvis while news of Elvis's death was spreading around them.
You're a fake and a phony, and I wish I'd never laid eyes on you.
Number 11. Sandy's most famous song was created because of a contract. One of the most emotional scenes in Grease exists because Olivia Newton-John's contract demanded a solo. John Farrar wrote "Hopelessly Devoted to You" during production, and the song was added specifically because Newton-John was contractually entitled to a solo and approval over her song. The scene became one of the film's quietest moments. Sandy alone, singing in the backyard, completely separated from the giant musical machinery surrounding her. And it worked. "Hopelessly Devoted to You" became the film's only Academy Award-nominated song. Number 10. Travolta took Kenicki's song. The movie's most famous car song wasn't supposed to belong to Danny Zuko, it belonged to Kenicki. Jeff Conaway had played Danny in the stage production and was now playing his sidekick in the movie. Then Travolta wanted it. Travolta had enough influence to push for Greased Lightnin' himself, and the song moved from Kenicky to Danny. Conaway eventually agreed, so the actor who had once played Danny on stage watched the movie role go to Travolta, then watched his signature song go with it. Number 9. The dance competition was filmed in brutal heat. The famous dance sequence was shot over 5 days inside an actual high school gym with the windows closed. Los Angeles was brutally hot, and Michael Tucci, who played Sonny, actually fainted and had to be taken to the emergency room. Didi Khan later recalled the cast dying from the heat. The gym was packed with bodies, costumes, lights, and choreography. And the heat kept building, so when you see those actors sweating through Born to Hand Jive, you're not looking at carefully manufactured movie perspiration, you're watching people trying to survive the room. Number 8. The director got seriously sick in the Los Angeles River. The Thunder Road race was filmed in the concrete Los Angeles River Channel, and the conditions were filthy enough to create a genuine production problem. Director Randall Kleiser injured his foot while working around the location and developed an infection, accompanied by a fever. Production had to stop while he recovered. Then John Travolta walked into his trailer with an unusual solution. Travolta gave Kleiser what he called a Scientology touch assist, repeatedly touching him and asking him to feel his finger. Kleiser eventually recovered. Travolta naturally believed his technique had something to do with it. Number 7. Pepsi nearly erased Coca-Cola from the movie. There's a weird visual glitch hiding inside the Frosty Palace. Coca-Cola signs were everywhere. Then producer Alan Carr realized he had a promotional deal with Pepsi. Reshooting the diner scenes would have been expensive, so the production went with a much stranger solution. They blurred the Coca-Cola branding out of the film using optical effects. Number 6. Sandy's famous pants were basically a trap. The most famous outfit in Grease came with a very practical problem. Olivia Newton-John's black pants were so tight she had to be sewn into them for the finale. And the broken zipper stayed with them for decades. In 2019, the pants sold for $162,500, while the matching jacket went for $243,200. Together, Sandy's final outfit fetched $405,700. Number 5. Rizzo nearly lost the best song in the movie. There Are Worse Things I Could Do gives Rizzo something the rest of Grease rarely allows: silence, vulnerability, and consequences. Alan Carr thought the song was a downer and wanted it gone. Stockard Channing fought him. Her argument was simple: without the song, Rizzo was just an attitude. This was the moment that showed what was underneath. Carr eventually relented, and suddenly the loudest character in the movie became one of its most human. Number 4. Half the original musical disappeared. 10 of the Broadway production's 20 original numbers were either dropped or reduced to background music. At the same time, new songs were written specifically for the film, including Grease, Sandy, You're the One That I Want, and Hopelessly Devoted to You. That means the Grease millions of people know is not simply the Broadway musical filmed with cameras. It's a heavily rebuilt version. Number 3. The movie's ending was missing a kiss. There was actually a Danny and Sandy kiss filmed for the ending, but an editing error caused the scene to disappear from the finished theatrical print, and the surviving footage was only in black and white. Randall Kleiser later tried to restore it, but wasn't satisfied with the result. The footage eventually appeared as an extra on the 40th anniversary home video release, so for decades, audiences watched the flying car and assumed that was the complete ending. Number 2. Cha-Cha was filming while facing a medical emergency. Okay, now we need to talk about the single most extreme fact in this entire movie's history. Annette Charles, who played Cha-Cha, filmed the drag racing sequence while suffering from what turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy. Contemporary trivia accounts and later production recollections note that she was in severe pain during the shoot and frequently leaned against cars. After filming, she went to the hospital for emergency surgery. Watch the scene again, and the little moments of Cha-Cha leaning against the cars suddenly look very different. Number 1. Paramount thought it was a small movie. Grease was made for roughly $6 million. Paramount initially planned a limited test-style release, and the film's prospects changed dramatically after John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever became a phenomenon. The studio expanded its plans, and Grease opened to enormous audiences. The result was absurd. By the following year, Grease had grossed approximately $200 million, at that point making it second only to Star Wars in movie history. After later releases, its worldwide gross reached roughly $396 million.